So we're on Daf Chaf Hey Amud Aleph. We went a little bit ahead yesterday. We got till the top of the next page. So the first paragraph is all about the structure of the sukkah, and I thought at the beginning of the second paragraph starts that's Hayasha and Dachas Amita, that's talking about already living how you live in the sukkah. But I made a mistake because after that we had a couple of mishnayos also about the structure. We had the issue about if the sukkah could be on a wagon and those sugyas. And some of the Pakari Amita, Sukkah Amid of Lalas. Yes, and what else did we have? The Sukkah Ben Atfanos. Back to the structure again. So it wasn't correct that I said that the whole second paragraph talks about sitting in the sukkah, but now we are up to it. The rest of the paragraph from here on does talk about how to sit in the sukkah, not the structure. And the first mission of the paragraph also did speak about if you're in the sukkah is a good sukkah, but you're under a tent. So that also was similar to how to sit in the sukkah. But here's really where the sukkah starts of the mitzvah yeshiva sukkah. Until now was a sukkah, what a sukkah is, and now how do you sit in the sukkah? So the Mishnah starts. Shluchim mitzvah p'tum in sukkah.
It's very interesting. Why did it start with potter? I would say, tell us what the mitzvah is.
So okay.
It's very signon. I saw.
Okay. Okay, so the Mishnah starts. Shluchim mitzvah putum in a sukkah. If someone is on the way to do a mitzvah, this is the regular general rule of osek mitzvah putum in a mitzvah.
Hello?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, did we do the Tashma, Shevis Patel?
Yes.
Okay.
I would go back, but it's going to be a whole different sukkah, so I'd rather start now. We can make it up if anybody wants to.
I see we did it. Okay.
Shluchim mitzvah putum in a sukkah. People that are on the way to do a mitzvah are part of a sukkah. And that is because the regular klal, nothing to do with Hilchos Sukkah daf, it's a general rule in the whole Torah. Osek mitzvah, part of a mitzvah. If someone's involved in one mitzvah, he's part of doing other mitzvahs while he's doing that mitzvah. So even on the way to do a mitzvah, he's not doing the mitzvah, he's on the way to do a mitzvah. Rashi gives a few examples. He's on the way to learn Torah, he's on the way to do Pidyon Shvuyim, he's on the way to whatever mitzvah it might be, keep it over aim. He's on the way to do a mitzvah, so he's parted from other mitzvahs. And the Gemara here is Taka is going to bring down a general sugya, nothing to do with mitzvah sukkah. Any mitzvah, if you're involved in one mitzvah, you're parted from other mitzvahs. That's the first law of the Mishnah, Shluchim mitzvah, p'tum in a sukkah. So if they're on the way to do a mitzvah and they want to go to sleep and there's no sukkah around, if they could do it easily without any problem just to go into a sukkah, so why not? But if they are going to have to look for a sukkah and it's going to interfere with their sleeping, and then they're not going to be able to get on time, or they'll be postponed. The mitzvah will be postponed, so they don't have to do that. Pater from a sukkah. A new halacha, which is a new point. Sick people, they're pater from a sukkah, so they could, if because of their sickness they would not be comfortable in the sukkah, and they're more comfortable to be home. The same way he'd go out of his house to go to a hospital or to some infirmary in order to take care of his problem. So he's part of sukkah also. He's allowed to eat and sleep, and even in the house. Misham Shein also, not only the sick person himself, also his people who are attending to him, his servants, attendants, that they're helping him. So they're also part of sukkah, and that means also that they eat and sleep out of the sukkah. That also might have practical application. I'm not saying halacha l'maisa, but the same thing would be if sometimes the father has to babysit or something like that, and he can't take the baby into the sukkah. So he also is the chor is not different than a chola. I think that this would also have practical application, even not for a sick person. Sick people definitely. If someone is attending to a chola in the hospital, he doesn't have to look for a sukkah. He eats in the hospital. He doesn't have to go to find the sukkah. And also might have application also of people that are taking care of babies that are also considered a chola l'chor, a chola shem b'sakana, and he also would be part of the sukkah. L'chora not sakana surely. L'chora means we'll see the more later. No, to do. I think pretty sure even a chola shem b'sakana. This is another Mishnah altogether, a new Mishnah. That the mitzvah of sukkah does not obligate him to eat everything in the sukkah. If it's only a casual eating, which has to be defined, what's called casual, so then he's allowed to eat out of the sukkah. We have the sukkah in Maseches Yoma that spoke about Paris over there. It's not in the Homosech over here. Over there it speaks about Paris, if Paris is chayiv in sukkah or not. So here it says you're allowed to eat and drink aray chus sukkah. We spoke about the different foods, Paris, and it comes out mizonos. The yes to eat in the sukkah probably, but all kinds of foods, and the poskim are machmir also maybe by minat hagima, maybe meat and cheese, things that are choshev foods, maybe also to be machmir, but out of bracha, unless you're, yeah. But achilas aray and shtiyas aray is part of the sukkah. The Gemara is going to talk about sleeping, but here it talks about eating and drinking. You are allowed to eat and drink out of the sukkah. It's only a casual, temporary eating. It seems to be. Yes, please.
So the people that are very machmir not to eat out of the sukkah, then they're just going lifnei mishuras adin, or
There's a Mishnah that we had. I forgot where it is. It can be later on. It's worth on a new one. It says there also that we're going to talk about it. That somebody, they brought him water and 2 figs, and he said, bring it up to the sukkah. That you're allowed to be machmir. It's a good thing to be machmir. You don't have to, but you're allowed to be machmir. But then again, you're not mechuyev to.
Right, so you see, it's only a chumrah.
According to the story about the Discworld,
That
that he drank water out of the sukkah. He wouldn't enter the sukkah because he says there's no reason to go to the sukkah.
No, there is a reason. The Gemara said there's a reason. No, so that doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that. No, it can't be. It's a Mishnah. No, yeah, but still, yeah. But you have to always go. You can't say stories against the Mishnah. So you have to figure out the story.
No, I'll
But
tell
halachas.
you the pshat of the story I heard. The story like what you said, but it just, he explained that, and he says, I don't do hummus. Always I'm afraid that I'm not going to.
Okay, so it's not a dinner, but that doesn't mean there's a chumrah not to eat, not to have water.
He said it's a chumrah, and I don't do chumrah.
There's also something similar from Shlomo Zalman that he says that he was machmir, but his chumrah was that he would go to the sukkah if possible. But if he's not gonna drink, he's not gonna say I'm not gonna drink because then it's tzara anyant if he wants to drink water and he doesn't have a sukkah available. If he's close enough to get a sukkah, so the chumrah was go to the sukkah. But he said he wasn't machmir, that he's not going to drink if he wants to be machmir. The chumrah was go to a sukkah, but he wasn't machmir not to drink. Okay, that's side issues. It's going to come later on. The main issue is going to be later on. Here the issue is Eichel v'Shois and Avei Chus L'Sukkah. The Mishnah seems to be 3 Mishnayos, even though it's all printed together. One is Osik Mitzvah Pater Ben HaMitzvah. The second one is about a chol that is Pater, and also their attendance. I think the attendance also might not be Pater because Osik Mitzvah, but more because Teishvu came to do. Only the way you usually, the same way people have, they go out of the house in order to attend to a chola. They stay overnight in the hospitals also, so that's not in their house. So the same thing, they could attend to a chola even out of the sukkah, and Eichel v'Shois and Avei Chus L'Sukkah.
Would probably be attended even not doing it for a mitzvah. He's getting paid a good price. He's doing it totally for the parnasa, but the chiddush is the attendance.
Is a Mishamshin, excuse me, but is a Mishamshin chole?
Yes.
That's not a shluchei mitzvah?
It might be, but I'm not sure if it could be. That's the reason why the Mishnah says Pater. It could be, but I think maybe the reason is because, as the Gemara is going to say, we didn't have the concept yet. Teishvu came to do that the mitzvah to live in the sukkah is the way you live in your house. If in your house you would go out, so then you go out of your house, so also you go out of the sukkah also. So I'm not saying that you're not right. It could be that you are right. That's the pshat in the Mishnah also.
So maybe this is more for the chole and not.
The chol himself is not because of Osik mitzvah. The chol is because the chol is Pater.
I understand, yeah, but the
Mishamshin might also be, but I'm not sure. So maybe we'll hold on to tomorrow. But not only meanly, how do you know Osik mitzvah? So we're going now into Shas Sugya, nothing to do with Sukkah Dafka. How do you know in general Osik mitzvah, Pater Ben HaMitzvah? The Tana Rabbanan, B'shivtcha b'veisecha prat Osik mitzvah, v'lechtcha b'derech prat l'chasan. This is the pasuk by Kriya Shema. The Pashvan, the pasuk is talking about learning Torah, but doing the mitzvahs, kind of always learning Torah. But Gemara Dash said as far as the mitzvah Kriya Shema, as we know, the mitzvah say Kriya Shema in the morning and in the evening. Here it says B'shivtcha b'veisecha. The Gemara Dash says you only say Kriya Shema when you're at home, which means that you're not doing anything of importance. You're not doing a mitzvah. But if you're doing a mitzvah, then you don't say Kriya Shema. Also, when you're going on your own private business road, so then you say Kriya Shema. But Prat l'chasan, the chasan who's on the road, so to speak, to do a mitzvah of getting married, we'll see soon right away about a chasan that he's also Pater Ben HaMitzvah. The Gemara doesn't ask why you have to have 2 psukim. B'shivtcha b'veisecha v'lechtcha b'derech osik b'mitzvah in general, and a chasan. The chasan is also osik b'mitzvah. Why is there an extra pasuk necessary to say that a chasan is Pater from Kriya Shema? He got married and now he's ready to have relations with his wife, so he's Pater from Kriya Shema until after the relations. And the Gemara says even a couple of days till he has relations, he's the Pater from Kriya Shema. Why should it be? Why do you need another pasuk? Why is it not included in the first general osek b'mitzvah? Rashi says the Gemara doesn't talk about it, but Rashi says that the chassan is not actually doing anything. He's just mentally involved in the fact that he's going to have relations, and that in order to do Kriya Shema, he'd have to wrench his mind to change his mindset, go out of the fact that he's going to have relations and he's going to go into Kriya Shema about Yichud Hashem. It's changing his channel. So that's also enough to be considered osek b'mitzvah Pater Ben HaMitzvah, and he doesn't have to go out of the mitzvah even mentally in order to say Kriya Shema. So that's considered a chiddush. You wouldn't know that from a regular osik mitzvah because he's actually doing something. Either he's doing the mitzvah or he's on the road to do the mitzvah. The chassan is not doing anything. He's home and he's just mentally involved. And that's enough to be also be Pater until after he has relations. But the Brisa does differentiate between a virgin and a almana, a widow that's already been married, that he's only Pater if he's marrying a basula, a virgin. But if he's marrying an almana who's already been married, so then he is chayiv in Kriya Shema. And the Gemara is going to discuss what the difference is. First of all, I want to know, what do you see it all in the pasuk? Where do you see anything about osik b'mitzvah? Who says? Me'im mashma. Where do you see anything in the pasuk that he's only potter if he's doing it varishus, he's doing something voluntary. How do you see that? Because it says and the road, the Gemara starts off that when you say going on the road, who goes on the road? You go on the road for business. You're sitting in your house, not doing anything, dafka mitzvah. Just like the example, the pasuk says that you're going on the road is because your own business, you're going on the road. So too, you only fight if you're going on your own business. But somebody's doing a mitzvah, so then on that, the pasuk doesn't say to say Kriya Shema. Also, mitzvah, mitzvah. But the Gemara is not happy with that. Who says that? Who says what he's doing on the road? Maybe he's going on the road to do a mitzvah. Merely askina the cause of mitzvah become Rahman al-Likri. Is the pasuk not also talking about that he's doing a mitzvah? Do you see in the pasuk in any place, in any way, do you see in the pasuk that he's only going for his own business? And then he's chayv Kriya Shema. Maybe he's on the way to do a mitzvah, pidyon shvuyin. And also the Torah says that he should say Kriya Shema. Maybe also a mitzvah is chayv. The Gemara says no. In Kain name of Kriyah b'Sheves b'Valeches. They should have said b'Sheves b'Bayis b'Valeches b'Derech not b'Shiftecha b'Lechtecha. The whole emphasis is on the last letter that it says achaf b'Shiftecha b'Lechtecha. You're going, you're sitting. B'Leches tidachu the mechayvus of b'Leches the mitzvahs b'tiras. You only chayv if you go on your own business. It comes out that the drush is not so much from the word derech anymore and Bayis. The drush is from the word b'Lechtecha b'Shiftecha. When you're doing your own sitting and your own going, then you're chayv in Kriya Shema. But if you're doing something because of a mitzvah, so then you're potter. So the Gemara is happy at this point that osik mitzvah potter ben mitzvah. But Grace ended off that only if he's having relations with he's marrying a basula, a virgin, but not an almana. The Gemara doesn't understand why not. The almana is also, it's mitzvah to marry an almana also. The Yachya says almana nami, he also should be potter. The Gemara says, Kohanes says absula tarit, Kohanes almana lo tarit. He's not mentally involved. His mind is only when he's marrying a basula. Why is that? Rashi seems to say a few points. Rashi says that he's tear to the machshava. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe Rashi means to say he's not sure if she's going to be a virgin or not. He thinks she's a virgin, but maybe he'll be surprised or not. I'm not sure if Rashi means that. Rashi at the end of the page says something about that he's trying to be baki b'davar. He's trying to learn how to do it properly. And by an alman, he doesn't have any problem with that. It's only difficult. There's only difficulty in having relations the first time, but for a basula. But after that, it's not as difficult. So maybe that's also part of his mindset before he has relations. But by almana, even though he's doing a mitzvah, but there's no tirda, there's no mental involvement that should be a reason why he's potter. Of course, while he's having relations, so then he's doing a mitzvah. That's oisik mitzvah. But the fact that before that is mental involvement, he's not so mentally involved if he's marrying a woman who's already had relations.
That's a side question.
Yes, please.
What about a man who was never married and then he marries an almanah? Is like the Gemara doesn't consider that that's a case.
No, it seems the whole issue is only that it's difficult to have the first-time relations with a virgin. That the difficulty, the physical difficulty, and it's to break the hymen. That's the issue that I seems to be talking about. The Gemara now takes it the other extreme. The Gemara thinks now you seem to be saying that the whole issue is only because he's Torah. He's involved. If anybody has a good word for Torah, I'm saying the word involved. Torah, anybody word for the English word for the word Torah? Anybody?
Involved, worried,
occupied. Good. So he's preoccupied. His mind is preoccupied. And the Gemara thinks now that once the Gemara said the difference between a basula and alman is because he's preoccupied mentally. So then, is that the Torah? You mean you're going off of mitzvah, not to do the mitzvah anymore? You're not saying because he's Torah. Is that what you mean to say? That's because he's preoccupied. His mind is preoccupied. Is that a reason to be potter? You might say yes. If somebody had a big financial loss, a case that his ship sank, and he just heard about the news, and now he's very bothered, very preoccupied, that he just lost a fortune. Are you going to say it's potter from Kriya Shema because he's preoccupied? You might say yes. You might say maybe he's potter. No, it's not true. That a person in mourning is also an example of somebody who's preoccupied. Either he lost a fortune or he lost a relative. So also you're going to say it's potter from Kriya Shema because his mind is involved in his tzaras. So it says no, that Avel is chayv in all the mitzvahs, including all the mitzvahs. You don't say it's potter Avel potter because he's Torah. There's one exception. We'll get to the exception later on the base. Tefillin. He's potter Avel the first day of his mourning is potter from tefillin because over there it says pe'er, that the tefillin is a glory, and glory doesn't go together with avelus. When he's in mourning, it's not fitting that he should be showing glory. But that's a side point that tefillin is an exception. But everything else in general, Avel's chayv in all the mitzvahs. So you see that someone who's Torah, just because he's preoccupied, is not a reason why he should protect all the mitzvahs. And now he's saying that the reason between basula and almana, the whole reason why basula is more potter is because he's preoccupied. So any preoccupation should already be potter. And we see not that Avel's chayv, and if a ship sank, he's chayv. The Gemara answers, no, you have to have both ingredients. The mitzvah, the It's only because there are two things, that he's Torah, the tirda the mitzvah. It has to be these words, tirda the mitzvah. It has to be that he's preoccupied doing a mitzvah. And that's example of marrying in a basula. But the case of Ovel, there's no mitzvah to be pained. So Rashi over here says something that people I think misunderstand, that Rashi says there's no mitzvah to be pained, and Ovel doesn't have to be pained. So people say as if there's no issue that an Ovel should feel bad. Who told you to feel bad? So of course I think it's not true. Of course Ovel feels bad. His relative died. He wouldn't be human if he wouldn't feel bad. But there's no mitzvah to feel pain when he gets a punch in the stomach either. There's no mitzvah. It's a human thing that a person feels pain. So when a person loses a relative, of course it's human and correct that he feels pain. And if he doesn't, there's a kasha. You're not a relative. But there's no mitzvah. That's not a mitzvah. So we'll tell him take off time and make wrench the mindset and take off time from your avelus and your pain and do Kriya Shema. Think about Hashem for 5 minutes. So it's not saying that it's not proper for Ovel to be pain. It's just saying that it's not a mitzvah to be a pain. I think that some people misunderstand the Rashi over here, and I heard the wrong shot when I was in high school, but I think that this is the right shot. Rashi on the bottom of the other Rashi says that there's no mitzvah. Rashi, one line from the bottom, says that even though Rashi says even though the person is trying to show sorrow by not wearing shoes and not washing and not anointing in order to show honor for the mace, these words, so people think that there's no reason to have tsar. It doesn't mean that. It means there's no mitzvah to have tsar. Of course it's human to have tsar. And on the contrary, the expression is supposed to be that he doesn't wash and doesn't anoint and doesn't wear shoes because he's expressing his sorrow. That's the mitzvah. So the Torah is not saying just express it and inwardly don't feel about it. But here it says that the person is pained normally, naturally, humanly because his relative died. And for the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, you should stop thinking about it in order to say Kriya Shema.
Excuse me, Rebbe.
Yes, please.
Are we saying that Shulchei mitzvah has an aspect of tirda to it?
Here, Shluchim mitzvah surely a tirda because he's doing a mitzvah. Shluchim mitzvah means that he's actually doing the mitzvah or he's on the road to do the mitzvah.
And so someone who's doing like Pidyon Ben, and does that mean, and he's patur from Sukkah, does that mean, are we saying that not Pidyon Ben, I mean Pidyon, what is it? Pidyon Shavuim.
Ransoming redeeming the
Ransoming somebody who's like in prison or something like that.
So the person
somebody who's involved in that, he's patur from Sukkah. Are we saying he's patur from all mitzvahs at that point because of the tirda?
Yes, but the whole tirda is in our sukkah is only because he's not doing anything. The people are doing something that they're actually doing a mitzvah or they're on the road to do a mitzvah. You don't have to come on to tirda. It's because he's doing something. Here the chiddush is that he's not doing anything. He's just in a mental state that cannot say Kriya Shema. So we tell them maybe take your mind off of it, or by a mitzvah you don't have to take your mind off of it. But when you talk about actually doing something, then there's he's patur because he's doing. You don't have to come onto the word tirda. It's as much as he's doing the mitzvah. There's a famous round over here that they bring down that if a person is mekayim a mitzvah, he's fulfilling a mitzvah, but he's not doing anything. So then he's not patur. If someone is wearing a tzitzis, he's doing a mitzvah. He's wearing tefillin, he's doing a mitzvah. He has a mezuzah by his door. He's been doing a mitzvah. He's fulfilling a mitzvah, but he's not doing anything. So there's no reason to be patur for mitzvahs because he has mezuzah on his door. But if he's doing a mitzvah, he's patur, even if he could do another mitzvah. And at the same time, he's still patur. Only if he could do one mitzvah that doesn't disturb at all, like on the way, without taking off any time from doing one mitzvah, he could do the other mitzvah in passing. So then
you're not patur.
Should do it. But if there's has to stop, even if he could do both, and it'll be only postponed a couple of minutes. You don't say that. Right now you're doing a mitzvah, so let's continue doing the mitzvah. Some Rishonim even say that you're not supposed to stop. Not only you don't have to stop, you're not supposed to stop because it shows disregard for the first mitzvah that you're doing. So this is the sugya of osek mitzvah patur and mitzvah. We brought it down because of our Mishnah. That's the reason why shluchim mitzvah patur from sukkah, because they're involved in doing a mitzvah. And Taisus points out, even when they're resting, even when they're camping out overnight, not while they're going, they're surely patur. And they patur, we'll see later on, even if he's not doing a mitzvah. If you're on the road, you patur from the sukkah, even if you're not going to do a mitzvah, we'll see later on. But here the case is that he's patur even when he's camping overnight. And Taisus says it must be that it's going to disturb the mitzvah somehow. If there's no difficulty, the sukkah is right there, so going to the sukkah. But in order to find the sukkah, it'll take time. You'd have to go someplace, build a sukkah. So then we say that disregard it, eat in the house, and sleep in the house, and continue doing the mitzvah. You're involved in a mitzvah because you're on the way to do a mitzvah.
Okay, what I was thinking of is there were three frum Jews in Nigeria who were for the last 3 weeks were in prison, and the Chabad emissaries in Nigeria, whatever they were doing to help get them out, or anybody in the world, whoever was helping to get them out, while they were helping them, then they were pater from mitzvahs, right? Because they
That's
were
what I'm
getting them.
saying. They wouldn't daven Shachris, Mincha, and Maariv, and they're doing a mitzvah, so they're pater from all the mitzvahs.
But then if there was something if in the process of helping, there were times when they weren't doing anything, then they should daven.
Right. There's nothing to do. The offices are closed, whatever chronic
That's-
connections are
I
pater
try
from.
to say in the opinion, unless they need the time to relax. And,
Right. If they want to go to sleep in order to be able to have more energy afterwards, so then also they shouldn't daven.
That's
Just go to
also part
sleep.
of the mitzvah.
They're
Uh-huh.
constantly involved.
Okay.
That there's no reason that a person whose relative dies should feel bad. So I think he's wrong. Okay, the Gemara is a kasha that we have a different source. But everything so far is good. We came to a good source of Osik Mitzvah Patim and a Mitzvah because that's B'Shiftecha, B'Lechtecha. When you're going and sitting, then you should say Kriya Shema, but if you're doing something for a Mitzvah, then not. The Gemara asks 4 lines from the bottom. Osik Mitzvah Patim and a Mitzvah Macha Nafka. Is this the source from where we get that someone's involved in a mitzvah, apart from doing other mitzvahs, is another source. We have some nafka. We learn from someplace from there, someplace else. The time you learned in a brisa, it says by Pesach Sheni. It says by Anoshim Pashas Baloscha. By Anoshim Mashal Yitvein Nefesh Adam. There were people who were tamei and they couldn't do the korban Pesach, and they asked Hashem. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe asked Hashem, and Hashem said he could do Pesach Sheni. So the case was they were tamei, and therefore they couldn't do the korban Pesach. The question was, why were they tamei? How did they become tamei? Also, who are those people who were tamei? So there are a few opinions. Most say Arono Shal Yosef Hayu did Rabbi Yosef Galili. Yosef Galili says they were the ones who were carrying the coffin of Yosef. Like it says in the pasuk that they took out the bones of Yosef, as Asmos Yosef they took out of Mitzrayim. So people were in charge of carrying them. So they became tamei. Yosef was dead, and the people who were carrying him became tamei. The Gemara continues. Next page. Amud Beis, top of the page. Rabbi Akiva Omer. Mishoel vel Safan Hayu Shayoskim Benadav Aviyu. In Parshas Shmini, that it says that another one of you they brought a Zara and they died and they got burnt up, and over there it says Moshe Rabbeinu told them Mishal and Safan that were cousins that they should carry another one of you out. Suas Achichem Me'es Pnei HaKodesh. They should carry out another one of you that the bodies were still there, even though they got burnt. The Gemara talks about if they were burnt inwardly or whatever they was about to carry out. So Mishal and Safan, these two people that became tamei because they had recently. The Gemara is going to talk about how recent this was. That it was recently. Arono Shal Yosef, they were carried out of Mitzrayim. Rashi says that they had camped by Har Sinai from Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and this is 10 months later. Rashi points out that this is now Rosh Chodesh. This is the beginning of Nisan, whatever. 7 days before Pesach. So. Mishal Bal Safan was not so long ago because that was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Rashi points out that's when Adavan Avihu died, and now they were not able to do the korban Pesach because they were tamei 7 days after they became tamei to Adavan Avihu.
Excuse me, didn't the people from that were carrying the bones of Aaron, they were carrying the bones of Yosef, weren't they at Har Sinai and weren't they purified?
That's a nice point. Maybe that's included in the Gemara's question. But here it says not, that they didn't. And even though they're purified, by Har Sinai just says that they should be purified from an emission. Like it says the 3 days that they were separated. But the Chora, they...
Tamei Mes might be something else. Well,
They
they were
did-
red heifer.
They were not Torah from Tumas Meis because they didn't have Paraduma at the time. Paraduma, Rashi points out, was said on the first day of Nisan on the second year. And they at the Nisan Sivan the previous year they did not yet have the Parsha Paraduma, so they were tamei meis, and anybody that had contact with the dead man was tamei, and they didn't have yet possibility to become Torah by Har Sinai. But now we're talking about they came to Har Sinai from Sivan, from Rosh Chodesh Sivan. This is now Rosh Chodesh Nisan. This is now 10 months later. So,
I'm saying by Har Sinai, they had 7 days.
but they didn't have the Paraduma.
There was no-
Yitzchak Omer, the third opinion, he argues on the first two opinions, and he says no, not that Bersek Lilu, not that Rabbi Akiva. In Nosei Aron Shal Yosef, you only Torah. In Mishal Bal Safan, you only Torah. They had enough time to become Torah in order to do the korban Pesach. Rashi points out that the Nosei Aron Shal Yosef, we just said that they stopped by Har Sinai on Rosh Chodesh Sivan of the previous year. This is 10 months later, so they're not touching and not carrying the Oren the whole time. They can't, and therefore they could have had time. Rashi points out that the Paraduma was the Parsha Paraduma was said on the 1st of Nisan, and on the 2nd of Nisan, they could have, that's when they did a paraduma. Rashi says, I don't know, Rashi knows. Rashi says on the 2nd of Nisan, they already did a paraduma. Allah did the paraduma, and they had already the ashes in order to become Torah. So now that they were holding a few 7 days, they need a 7-day process. They become time for 7 days. So fine, so on the 2nd day of Nisan, plus another 7 days on the 9th, on the 10th of Nisan, they could have become Torah already. It's no reason that they had to be Pesach Sheni. They could have become Torah by the 14th. When did they have to become Torah? For the 14th of Nisan to bring the Korban Pesach. So there's plenty of time. So as far as the Rebbeinu Yosef, they had enough time. And Mishal Balsaf, and also Yechol Torah, because they died on the 1st of Nisan. And as we just said, 2nd of Nisan, they got the Paraduma, and they had 7 days of Tumah, and they could have become Torah. So who were these people who were Tameh, and they couldn't do the Korban Pesach? Ela Oskin B'Mitzvah Hayu. They were people who people died. Meis mitzvah. So meis mitzvah usually means somebody that there's no relatives. But here Rashi says that it doesn't have to have relatives. If no one's going to be allowed to bury them, so then there's a meis mitzvah. So the relatives are the people that died in the midbar right before Pesach of the 2nd year. Some people died, so the relatives had to bury them. So the point is, what I was going to say is that they knew Korban Pesach is coming. A relative died, and if they become tamei, they're not going to be able to do the Korban Pesach in 7 days. And they could not become tamei and let the mace, whatever, put them aside and wait till after Korban Pesach, 7 days. That sounds a little bit strange that they would leave the mace 7 days in order, but that's a possibility. If they have to Korban Pesach, maybe they'd have to not become tamei in order to do the Korban Pesach. So the fact that they did become tamei, that shows that the mitzvah of taking care of the mace mitzvah right now overrides the other mitzvah of Korban Pesach. And the Gemara thinks that this is a source that also be mitzvah, but the mitzvah. The fact that they become tamei and they didn't take into account that they're going to lose the Korban Pesach shows because I'm doing one mitzvah, I don't have to be concerned with other mitzvahs that I'm going to be losing. The Gemara, so we just finished the kasha now that the people who became tamei right before the Korban Pesach, you see that they became tamei even though they're going to lose the Korban Pesach, also mitzvah, but the mitzvah. The next couple of lines is a side point which is not our concern right now, but it says that not only do we know that they were people who got tamei to their relatives because of a meis mitzvah, but it's going to say exactly when they became tamei. The 7th day to become Torah came out on Erev Pesach. I think it will come out maybe the 8th, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. On the 8th day of Nisan was then the people, when these people died, somebody died on the 8th of Nisan, and the relatives, they became tamei, and the last day of their tumah is Erev Pesach. Rashi points out this is not negated to us. It's just a question: could they do a Korban Pesach on Erev Pesach if tonight they'll be ready to be able to eat the Korban Pesach? This is what the Gemara calls in Maseches Pesachim. If Shochan v'Zochen al Tamei Sheretz, if someone's only tamei one more day, Erev Pesach is tamei tonight. By the 15th, the night of the 15th, they'll already be Torah. So there's a side that you're allowed to do the Korban Pesach. Not them; they can't do the Korban Pesach themselves because they can't go into the Beis Hamikdash. They can't do the Korban, but somebody else could do the Korban for them. They'll be manui. They'll be one of the members of that Korban, and tonight they'll be able to eat. They go to the mikvah and they'll be ready. Well, the paraduma, they got the ashes of the paraduma on the 3rd and the 7th. Go to the mikvah. They'll be able to eat it tonight. So this is a side point that here it's mashma that even if it's the 7th day is their Pesach, the 7th day of their tumah, and tonight they'll be able to eat the Korban Pesach. Still, they're not allowed to do the Korban Pesach, which is a side point. Shechol Shvi Shalom Yosef Pesach, the 7th day of their tumah, fell in Erev Pesach. Shenema, how do I know that was the day? It says they weren't able to do the Korban Pesach on that day. Why does it say Bayamahu? Bayamahu and Yechol Lasso, Shalomachu Yechol Lasso. They just missed it by 1 day. If it would have been 1 day earlier, they would have been able to make it already, but they missed it by 1 day. That's a side point. What do we want from all this? That they became tamei to the relative who died in order to bury him, even though they knew they're going to be missing out on the Korban Pesach. So you see, also the mitzvah, but the mitzvah. So that's the most kasha. How come we have to have 2 drushes for the same thing? But as we learned out the Shivtacha, Balachtacha, we just said a whole drusha to learn out that you put in Kriya Shema if he is doing a mitzvah.
Rebbe.
Yes, please.
Rashi has a golden line here at the end of Shechol Shvi Shalahen. He says, Alma mitzvah kala haba liyadcha eino tzarik lidchoisa mipnei chamura asida lavoi.
So Rashi is pointing out that even though both mitzvahs are not here right now, what's coming in the future, also he doesn't have to take concern that's going to come later on. And that's going to be coming up in the second that the Gemara is going to talk about that it did not yet come, it wasn't yet Pesach. But we'll see the answer right now, and that will shed light on that Rashi. So the Gemara says, the Gemara's kasha was what do you have to have 2 drushes for? One drush was from Kriya Shema, b'shivtecha b'lechtecha. The other drush is that this pasuk is mashma, they became tamei, even though they knew they were going to lose the Korban Pesach as a result. The Gemara says, shricha. You have to have both psukim to tell you also the mitzvah, patam and mitzvah. The Ashbin and Hosam Mishim the Lamadazman Chiyuv the Pesach. Abalacha the Madazman Kriya Shema Ein Malo. Shricha. That the pasuk of The Korban Pesach is not enough of a drasha, and the Chorah it's a pella that has nothing to do with Osir B'Mitzvah. When it came time for Korban Pesach, the reason why they didn't do the Korban Pesach is not because Osir B'Mitzvah, it's because they were Tamei. The only question was, a few days earlier, should they become Tamei or not? So that the Gemara says is not a source to Osir B'Mitzvah. Over there it says that I should do the mitzvah now of burying the mace, burying the dead person, and as a result, it became Tamei. When he becomes Tamei, he can't do the Korban Pesach. You don't see Osir B'Mitzvah over there. But over here, by Kriya Shema, he's doing a mitzvah, whatever. Konus Absula. He could stop that in order to say Kriya Shema. Maybe over there, he say he should stop in order to do Kriya Shema because he could do the mitzvah now. Over there, by Korban Pesach, he can't do the Korban Pesach now because now he's already Tamei. So he wouldn't have a proof for there that also the mitzvah part of the mitzvah when he could do the mitzvah now. There's also this other way because Kriya Shema is a mitzvah saseh, but the Korban Pesach is a mitzvah saseh sheish b'kares. It's very severe, the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. If someone doesn't do it, he's chayv kares. So you might think that even though we say the mitzvah part of the mitzvah, that's only a regular mitzvah, but a serious mitzvah like Korban Pesach, maybe he should say that they don't do the mitzvah of becoming Tamei to a mace in order to be able to do the Korban Pesach. And mashmalan that even to keep up a big mitzvah, also the mitzvah is even part of a big mitzvah. So what have we learned so far? That we have learned one sugya so far. Osik b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah. And we have two sources, and the Gemara says why you need both of them, and that's the halacha. Osik b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah. The Gemara backs up to discuss some things that we spoke about. Gufa we learned before. Amr Abba Barzav Amr Rav Avol Chayv v'chol mitzvah samus b'torah chus b'nat filan she'einem bo ben pe'er. That Avol is chayv in all mitzvahs, like we said, that it's not called a mitzvah. So there's no mitzvah to have pain. It's a human thing to have pain, but it's not a mitzvah. So he's chayv in all mitzvahs. But tefillin is an exception. The Avol doesn't wear tefillin because by tefillin it says pe'er. Where does it say pe'er? And the Gemara brings a pasuk in the next line. Pe'echa chavo shalacha. V'dam le'yachman le'yecheskel pe'echa chavo shalacha. Atu dem l'chayvus avokul gam optivi. That by Yecheskel it says that Hashem was telling Yecheskel to act as a symbolic prophecy that is going to come. When people are dying, like it happens by war and things like that, that the people they don't have the possibility to mourn. So that was something that Hashem told Yecheskel to go against the regular way of things, the way of the world. And even though your wife is going to die, don't mourn. And over there says one of the things Hashem told him to do is you should wear tefillin. Put on your glory. So that might mean a hat, a glorious hat. But the Gemara takes it to mean the tefillin. The tefillin is called pe'er. And here the Gemara says a little different than Rashi said before. Rashi said that tefillin and avelus don't go together. Tefillin is pe'er, that's glory, and avelus is mourning. It doesn't go together to wear a glorious crown when a person is in mourning. Here the Gemara says a little different. The fact that Hashem told Yecheskel to wear tefillin, so that means you wear tefillin to be in a symbolic act of not mourning. That means that everybody else who mourns does not wear tefillin. So you see that Abel does not wear tefillin.
We don't know.
So we do. But the Gemara says one more line. Only the first day means the day of the death. The day of the death, the Abel does not wear tefillin. Sometimes the people that if the person didn't die, you didn't hear about it until after you daven Shachris. You put on tefillin in the morning, everybody say you wore tefillin, and people don't put on tefillin again later on. But the day, if you heard about it before put on tefillin, he doesn't put on tefillin the first day. The person talk about Yom Miso Kavur if it's only the day of the death or the day of the burial. But to make it simple, for sure, if it's both the day of the death and the burial, he doesn't put on tefillin that day. If the mace died, not because of Wainan. No. Even after the burial, he comes home and he's sitting shiva, he doesn't put on tefillin. Even though he didn't wear tefillin that day. He doesn't wear tefillin. That's halacha. Halacha l'maisa. I mean, it shouldn't happen to anybody. No, it shouldn't be halacha l'maisa. But the Abel does not wear tefillin the first day. Sometimes it doesn't happen because he wore tefillin already, and he shouldn't put on tefillin again for that day. But the day of the death, the Mishnah Berurah talks about if it's only the day of the kfura, but he died one day and then didn't bury him until the next day. It's only the day. Maybe Yachvisa Kyoma only means the last day. The words literally mean the end is like a bitter day. It means the end of life is a bitter day. So that day, so maybe it means the day of death. And maybe if the day of death was already yesterday and today was the day of the burial, maybe that's not enough reason not to wear tefillin. Only the day of the death. I think the Mishnah Berurah talks about that maybe people do wear tefillin if it's only the day of the burial. But if it would be the day of the death, then surely halach is not to wear tefillin. The Gemara continues. another thing about, yes,
After the burial, they will put on stone, like a new coin.
no, the whole day, the first day, the first day. But I'm saying if he died the day before, maybe yes. But if he died that, no, but if he died that day, so then Achmisha Kiyomar, and that means a night also. If he died the previous night and didn't bury him till the day, he doesn't get thrown that day. And Onain is part of the mitzvahs because he's taking care of the mace. That's like Osek mitzvah. The Onain, you talk about a person before the burial. The reason why the relative is part is because he's involved in the burial and he has to be on standby. So he's not doing mitzvahs because he's Osek mitzvah. It's not because it's not because in the morning. It's because of the Osek mitzvah that he's and if he gave it over to Chevra Kadisha and there's nothing else for him to do anymore, then he is chayv mitzvahs.
Yeah.
It's only because he's Osek mitzvah.
Yeah, when my mother was in late when I was here and I spoke to Rebbe, and he says, you're not doing anything, everybody's doing it in America, everybody's doing whatever. So I went to Daven Mincha, and I even Daven Meyer, whatever. I had nothing to do with
The only
everything.
thing
I
would
just
be is,
flew, and-
But I think that you spoke to Avnei Mitzvah also or somebody.
Yeah.
the only thing would be is if you get people to come to a bayit,
Yeah, anything he's doing for the purpose of the funeral or the burial or the funeral, then that's called also a mitzvah. That's a mitzvah also to get people to come. He has to announce it. But if he's not doing anything, so he's not involved anymore in the Tzarchei Hamei, so then he's chayv mitzvahs. The onain of the, what we call an onain, that before the burial, it's the Torah mitzvahs is not because of mourning. Another's chayv mitzvahs. The reason why your onain is put is because it's before the burial, he has to take care of the burial and whatever's involved in that. The Gemara continues. The Amma. But sometimes the Chevra Kadisha, he still has to have responsibility. Sometimes, even though he gave it up to Chevra Kadisha, but he has things to take care of still. He has to make decisions. If anything that he has to be on standby, she's part of the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs might stop him from doing the Tzarchei HaMeis. Osik mitzvahs, really Osik. Osik mitzvah, part of a mitzvah. He's involved in bearing the mace. If theoretically, like some cases, that he has nothing to do, or other relatives are making decisions, he's not doing anything.
Why do you need
There's no such thing. No, that's what it is. And just point out that the word onain, there's two different. There's a Torah term of onain and there's the rabbinical term of onain. Onain, the Torah means he doesn't eat kachim. It's nothing to do with Pater mitzvahs and nothing to do with the burial. Even it has to do with the Yom HaMisa, even after the burial. The onain, the rice, it's not allowed to eat kachim. It's a different subject. And the Rabbanan, we call onain somebody before the burial is called an onain. After that, it's called an over. But the terminology changes.
Also, let's say someone relative died at night. Until 7 o'clock in the morning, you can't make any phone. Today you can do everything. Computer, you can email.
It's okay, that-
but
okay,
then until 7 o'clock in the morning, you can't do anything.
If he can't do anything, it's not temporarily. He can't do anything right now.
So
I'm
now,
not sure.
no, nice, you have to make profits.
I'm not sure. I hear, but I'm not sure. He's saying that it goes on and off. If right now we can do something, if we can't.
No,
I
today
hear.
everything's different.
I hear,
You make
but,
emails,
but he's saying it depends technically. If right now we can do something at this particular moment, I hear, but I'm not sure about that. I'm just saying I don't know. I always reserve the right to say I don't
No,
know.
but it makes the svar makes
It
sense.
could be, but it could be that there are still decisions to make. He's still osek. It doesn't have to be right now. I can make a phone call, but I don't know. The Gemara continues. Top line over here. I'm sorry, I skipped that wrong line. Here it is. We said before Avos Chayv in all mitzvahs. Now we also specifically said Avos Chayv in Sukkah. And the Gemara wants to know what's different. What's something special about Sukkah? He's Chayv in all mitzvahs. Pshita, he's Chayv in all mitzvahs. Why should he be part of the Sukkah? Now the time all Bamra Rava. They changed the gears. All Bamra Rava. That star part of the Sukkah. We're going to see later on tomorrow Sukkah. The star. Somebody that's pained by the Sukkah. Someone that flies. It's cold. It's hot. Whatever reason that it's hard for him to stay in the Sukkah. He's part of the Sukkah. Things are falling into the soup from the schach. Whatever the case might be. He's part of the sukkah. So you might think that he's mitzvah. You might think that this person is novel, he's also mitzvah. But mashmalan, that he's not, it's not enough reason to be mitzvah. Of course he's been pain because his relative died. Now, if there's no difference, his pain of his relative died, it makes a difference if he's now also on the sukkah, his relative died. So surely that wouldn't be the Gemara wouldn't talk about that he's potter because he's mitzvah. What's the difference? He goes to the house, he's still mitzvah. It has to be that under a situation he's more sensitive and whatever it could be, he can't eat, he can't fall asleep, he needs his bed because he's in such a pain. But of course, it has to be a case that the house would be more comfortable for him, and some of the time would go away. The pain is because his relative died, but because of that, the sukkah is difficult for him to stay in the sukkah, and he'd rather stay in his house. And even that, you can say that he's chayiv. He's chayiv.
Rashi says two words. He says Hasha Sukkah Mitzayro. It has to be from Guf Minei Sukkah.
Which Rashi going on?
Tzaira de Mimela. Sukkah Mitzarto.
Yeah, I'm saying a little different. You're going. Let's see the next line. You're going to the next words. The one answers. If you read the Gemara plain, the Gemara says, "When am I parted from sukkah? Only if the sukkah, only a tzar which comes by itself." Which Rashi says, let's say it's hard or cold or bugs, then I'm parted because it's a tzar d'memela. But over here, he's the one who is pained. He's painting himself, and he should calm himself. This translation of the Gemara. But over here, he is painting himself. He should calm himself. If you read the Gemara plain, it might give the impression that there's nothing to do with the sukkah. When is a Mastar Potter only if the sukkah is bothering him? But here, the sukkah is not bothering him. But I try to avoid that. That I think that's not the pshat. Because if there's no difference to him in the sukkah or out of the sukkah, so then what's to have mean that he's Potter? The sukkah is no difference. He has a problem. The problem is in the sukkah. He goes to the house. His relative still died in the house also. It doesn't take away the problem. So I think the Gemara is coming to say that for sure the case is that he is bothered by the sukkah, even in the case, not the Rashi says Tzar d'memela. I'm going even in this case where it says even to come a star nafshe. Also the case is that he's bothered by the sukkah, but the reason why he's bothered by the sukkah is because he is pained by his dead relative. And that we say, take your mind off, calm yourself down, and go into the sukkah in a way that you should be able to stay in the sukkah. I think that the pshat that I said, I think that it helps the simple wording that it has to be that the case is that the sukkah, the house is more comfortable for him than the house. But we're saying that since the whole source of his pain is only his rishus, he's being pained, so we'll tell him, calm yourself down, take your mind off of it, and be able to eat in the sukkah, and don't be pained by it. Everybody could say different than I said. I'm just offering up pshat. The Gemara, one more Gemara told the bottom of the page. The chassan of the shishminin. What's the word for shishminin? It means those who are attending him, the good friends. I think that's the word of shishminin means a good friend. But people who are the samech, the guests, the relatives, the guests who are samech together with the chassan. So the potter from sukkah all 7 days of Shivas Mishnah. For the 7 days of celebrating after someone gets married, he celebrates for 7 days. The potter from sukkah. What's the case? When did he get married? Rashi points out he doesn't get married during sukkahs. Chol Hamoed not allowed to get married. He got married before. Between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, there are 4 days. He had time to get married. Doesn't happen too often that people get married between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, but it does happen. And Al Chassan, who's during Shabbat brachas, he's potter from sukkah. Not only him, also all the guests. And they eat in the house. They have a Shabbat brachas in the house. My time. Why? They have to be happy. It's a mitzvah to be happy. So for some reason, the sukkah doesn't fit with the happiness. The Gemara says, what's the problem? Eat in the sukkah, be happy in the sukkah. What's the problem? No, ain't simcha l'b'chuppah. The happiness of the chassan kala is only b'chuppah. Chuppah doesn't mean what we hold kappa as a canopy. Chuppah means the place where they live. The new apartment that the chassan kala move into, that's called the chuppah. And the happiness is only there. It's very, very different than today's. Today, everyone jumps around from Shabbat brachas to Shabbat brachas.
I didn't understand it. The chassan and kala probably move into a 1 or 2 bedroom, 1 or 2 room.
Yeah, 4x4. Like the ones are dollar by dollar.
Where they have room for all the
So how many guests? Okay, they could be the outside. They by the chatzar, whatever it might be. But the real simcha is only b'chuppah. This is very different than we think nowadays. The mindset today is you go to a restaurant, you go to relatives, and Taisha talks about. See in a second. The Taisha about.
You would think they just got married.
Yeah.
So he's going to sleep in the sukkah. She's going to sleep in the house.
No. For sure. For sure together. So the first thing the Gemara says, what's the problem? Eat in the sukkah. The Gemara says no, the Gemara says no. Ain't simcha l'b'chuppah. The happiness is that you want the kala. The kala is also on the sukkah. The kasha was eat and be happy in the sukkah. It means with the kala. So it says no. Ain't simcha l'b'chuppah. We're getting to sleep. Why not? First of all, okay. But the Gemara is going to suggest why maybe yes. Is that a reason to be potter? First thing Gemara says women are not chayv in sukkah, but if he's chayv in sukkah, so let her come along also. First thing Gemara says ain't simcha l'b'chuppah. The first point is that the happiness of the chassan kala is only when they're home, so they have to be home. So the Gemara says, "V'lechlu b'sukkah, v'lechlu b'chuppah." So what's the problem? Eat in the sukkah, and then go be happy at home. You want to be happy, so spend all Shabbat brachas. But eating or sleeping should be in the sukkah. The Gemara says, "No, ain't simcha l'b'chuppah suda." Happiness goes together with eating. You want to celebrate? Celebration goes together with eating. So you can't say that I should eat in the sukkah and happy. Happiness goes together with the suda. So what's the problem? Bring the chuppah into the sukkah, v'lev the chuppah b'sukkah, which means that the chassan kala should live there for 7 days. That should be their home. Why not make that they should have the chuppah in the sukkah? And everything's fine. They could eat and sleep and happy. Everything's good. About 2 reasons. Abai Amma Mishum Yichud, Rav Amma Mishum Tzar Chassan. 2 reasons. Abai says it might happen Yichud. What's Yichud? So Rashi explains that it might be that other people are visiting. Somebody's coming in, and the chassan might have to go out for a minute, and the kala is going to be alone with somebody, and that's Yichud. Rashi says that usually the sukkah is for on the rooftop, whatever, and if the chassan will go down, maybe he has to tend to his needs, to relieve himself, so then someone's going to be alone with the kala. There's a kasha over here that what's the problem? Bala Ba'ir. The halach is that if the husband is in town, there's no yichud, even if someone's with the kala. But the answer that Shushvinim, people that live gaspa, people that feel comfortable with each other, so then there's no heter Bala Ba'ir. Bala Ba'ir is only somebody that's like a stranger. But if somebody that the woman feels comfortable with, so then that's no heter Bala Ba'ir. So if the husband's going to go down, so the sukkah is a place where not everybody's coming in and out, and therefore they might come yichud. So we don't want to make a takana that they should have the chuppah in the sukkah. The Gemara Kasha, and Rabbi says because it's not comfortable. The chassan Rashi is not enough privacy. He wants to enjoy his kala together, and there's no privacy because Rashi says only 3 walls. You can say also that the schach is also not private enough. So therefore, we can't tell them to make the chuppah in the sukkah because it's not private. My benai, what's the difference between the two pshatim of chash yichud or because it's not private for them? The shchichi enchi the nach kivayla lasam. If it's very busy, a lot of people coming in and out, there's no chash yichud. There's no chash yichud. But the problem is, on the contrary, there's no privacy, even less privacy. So therefore, they would be potter. So far we said that in general, you can't ask the chassan kala to have the whole. To live in the sukkah for 7 days, so they're going to be living in the house, and therefore you have to have also the suda in the house. So everybody comes into the house, all the chassan kala with all their entourage, whatever the whole company of the shevet brachas, they come and eat in the house. But the Gemara ends off Amar Abzera, the sukkah b'chadi b'chuppah, the kol shkem b'chadi the boy the kavida tati. I ate in the sukkah and I rejoiced in the chuppah. Means he also stayed in the chuppah with his wife when he first got married, but he ate in the sukkah. And before the Gemara said that there's no happiness only when you have a suda over there, celebrate with the food. He says, by me, it's better the mitzvah. The fact that I was able to eat in the sukkah, that gave me such happiness that I did both mitzvahs. I surely had happiness. My heart was happy because I did both. I did the mitzvah of simchas. I had the simcha of the suin and also mitzvah sukkah. Interesting, the Gemara sounds very much like Abzera was like his own thing. He's a big madriga that he enjoys the mitzvah more than eating and celebrating with the chuppah. So he was able to make the eating in the sukkah and being with his wife in the chuppah. But the poskim bring this down la'alacha. The poskim say to do like a bzera, to eat in the sukkah. If we're not going to say the kala should come into the sukkah, we say they should rejoice in the. But for the eating time, the chassan, the kala could also come in. But maybe the Gemara said that they could come. They're losing out on the fact that they're not going to have the celebration of the eating. The suda is not going to be in the place where they're living. That it says the happiness that they're doing the mitzvah should override, and they should be happy.
So the eating in the sukkah with the sleep.
Yeah, right. Right. So they live at home, but they should eat in the sukkah. And it's interesting because the Gemara makes it sound like a bzera. His madrega, he was happy, but that's what that's the halacha that they do make the Shabbat brachas in the sukkah. But it does say that they still would live at home, not in the sukkah. And the sugya it goes further, and that'll be the sugya tomorrow. We'll continue into tomorrow's sugya tomorrow. To review today, thank you for reminding us. And first of all, that's one big sugya that someone's doing a mitzvah, and there are 2 sources. We said even a chassan who's not actually doing anything is also not on a road to do the mitzvah, but the fact that he's mentally preoccupied is also enough reason to be potter. Other things that are preoccupied, if it's not a mitzvah, like someone is an ovel or he lost a big financial loss, he's not potter. It's only if it's a tirda, the mitzvah. Also, according to Salmon, if there's no tirda, you have to have 2 ingredients to be potter, tirda and a mitzvah. After that, it says there's also another source from Pesach. Over there, people became tamei to relatives that died on the 8th of Nisan, even though they knew they're going to lose the Korban Pesach, because also for mitzvah, you have to have both drushes. One is to tell you, even though by mitzvah of Kriyashma, he can still do the mitzvah. But in the case of the Korban Pesach, once he's tamei, it's too late. So when he did the mitzvah of Pesach didn't arrive. Once Pesach arrived, he's tamei. So it wouldn't be such a source. And the reason why you have the mitzvah, it's not to say Kriyashma, is to say that even a big mitzvah, like Chiv Karei, it's also, he's part from the mitzvah of Pesach if he did not the mitzvah beforehand. After that, Avil Chai b'chol mitzvahs except for tefillin. On the first day, Yom HaMisa, the day of death, Avil is part from tefillin because Pe'er and tefillin don't go, and Avelis don't go together. All the way the Gemara said it. The fact that Hashem told Yecheskel to wear tefillin means everybody usually does not wear tefillin. Avil Chai ben Sukkah, even though he's mitztayer. But it's a kind of mitzvah that he should be telling to Mesiach Das in order to be able to sit in the sukkah. Only if the sukkah itself is bothering him, but over here, he could take away the tzar. I think it means even though it is easier for him in the house, but he could take away the whole problem with the tzar in order to be able to sit in the sukkah, says Mechuyev too. And the last Gemara was that the chassan and all of the company is all Pater from Sukkah, all 7 days of Shiva Simei Mishnah, because he has to be in the chuppah, and you have to eat in the chuppah. The simcha is only b'makom chuppah. The simcha is only b'makom suda. So you have to put the suda into the chuppah, and you can't put the whole chuppah and sukkah everything into the sukkah because either because sar chasen it's not enough privacy or because of shash yichud, and therefore they should eat in the house. But the Gemara ends off that Reb Zera, he ate in the sukkah and he lived in the house in order because then he was happy because he had everything. And the poskim do say that to do like Reb Zera. There's very interesting places over here that Ashkenazi don't do. Taisus says that when the Gemara says Simcha L'B'Chuppah, Taisus says so maybe not to say Sheva Brachas only when the Sheva Brachas is in the house of the Chassan Kala. And nowadays the Gemara never happens. Always is by relatives jumping from one place to every night to go someplace else, and restaurants and all these kind of things. So Taisus says that could be you don't say Brachas Chasanim, you don't say Sheva Brachas. And the Sfardim do that. I was by a Sfardi Sheva Brachas. If anybody knows differently, please tell me. But I was by a Sfardi Sheva, only said Ashabora, only the last bracha. I said, what's the problem? So they said, only b'makom chuppah. They said like this halacha. I think the Shulchan Aruch brings it down as the Yesh Omrim. The Taz brings down that who's that Beis Shmuel? They bring down a Maral that says not different than Tosfos, but Tosfos says that this. They only say Sheva Brachas in the makom chuppah, only in the place where they live. Which come on, never happens that you said that when they have Sheva Brachas by the Chassan Kala's house. But the Shvardim would not say Sheva Brachas only at Les Bracha Shabara, and Ashkenazim do different than Tosfos and they do say Sheva Brachas.
I don't really understand this whole thing because usually you have. More enjoyable when you have a big one. In one night you share boxes.
So saying that, they're saying that the omek of the simcha is when they're home.
I don't understand that.
I think a little bit it has to do with what.
No, I'm not disagreeing with the Gemara.
It could be that now the whole thing of eating out is the Gemara doesn't understand that. We don't eat out. The happiness of being home.
The uncle, by grandparents.
That they should come. They should come. They should come and they should all come to visit. They should come with the place. The place that they live, that's the real simcha. The simcha
They're
is,
gonna come with the food.
come with the the Chassan Kala. They don't make the food, and they should bring the food and the guests and everything. And so,
wait, and the wife has to start worrying about the cleanness of her house when she's in the middle of Shabbat.
No, they come to clean before, they come to clean after. And how big is the whole house? Only a dollar by dollar. There's not so much to clean up. Whatever it is, the Gemara says the Ein Simcha L'B'Chuppah, and L'Chora, according to that, Tosfos says we would not say Sheva Brachas, but the Minhag Ashkenazim is not like that. Yashik Koch, everybody. Thank you.
Rebbe.
Yes.
There's a different tumult on Rashi in the Mishnah. He gives 3 examples, and one of them is Talmud Torah, but it also has a lesson of Holchei Bederek, which you darshaned as even if he's only going on his way. Rabbi Rosner said the opposite. He said maybe the Havmina here is that it's more chomer if you're on your way than it is if you're already sitting and learning. And then there's a Meiri here from Moed Cotton that says that your vada chayiv to be vatal Talmud Torah if it's not efshar to do it al yidei acherim, but if it's efshar to do it al acherim, you don't be vatal Talmud Torah. And there's a Rambam in Yishus here that says that from the patur that the patur is the patur for pushing off marriage after the Gil 20 is because of Talmud Torah.
I didn't follow the listening, but the first thing you pointed out was that Rashi is a big chiddush. Rashi says that one of the examples is going to learn Torah. So the kasha is, how could it be that going to learn Torah is part of a mitzvah and learning Torah is not part of a mitzvah? I think it's a big kasha, and I don't understand the answer to say that going is going to be more reason to be pater than when he's actually learning. If learning is pater, is chayv to do mitzvah, how could it be going to learn? So I don't understand Rabbi Rosner's answer to say that it's possible to be more pater. The kasha seems to be a strong kasha. Some of the gears are lamed. There's some answer that Rashi doesn't mean limud, it means lamed. But whatever the answer is going to be, I can't understand that it's going to be more pater going to learn than when he's actually learning. But the kasha is a good count.
I'm not sure Kav Makshava was something like what I said with the Meiri, meaning that, for instance, there are aterim to go to yeshivas, even in Chutz La'aretz from Eretz Yisrael, or to go to Eretz Yisrael from Chutz La'aretz, because you're trying to get a better surah of limud, right? Something that.
But it's not only the going over there; it's going and staying. The learning also means he's pushing off marriage, learning, not because he's going to learn. So that make a difference between
going. The question is in the Zman you're going as opposed to the Zman that you're actually learning, because you see that if you're actually learning and comes up a mitzvah, we learn from the Meiri and Moed Cotton that then you're Mavatal Talmud Torah in all Makar.
Yes, I hear the kasha, but I don't hear the answer. The kasha is a good kasha that when he's learning, he has to stop learning in order to do the mitzvah. He also has to do the mitzvah in order to, I'm learning, I'm not going to do mitzvahs. The whole purpose of learning is to do mitzvahs. So the kasha is, how can he be pater, how can he be pater from mitzvah going to learn if the learning itself doesn't pater? The kasha I registered, but the answer doesn't register by me. And the quote about people going to Bavel Teretz Yisrael to learn is not only the going, it's also the being over there. They stay there for 10 years and they push off marriage. So I don't see how that answers that there's anything about going.
If while they're over there comes up a mitzvah that they have to do themselves, and so they'll have to be Mevatel Torah while they're learning over there.
Yes, and the question is that going to learn also should not be more reason to be pater. If you have to stop learning in order to do mitzvahs, you have to stop going to learn. The kasha I registered. I didn't get the answer.
I'm asking Torah Chiyun.
Okay. Yashikov, everybody. Looking forward to tomorrow. Thank you.
Yes, Chicago.
So